Hey, 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 WeatherBrains, episode number 519, the year ender. We're going to wrap up 2015 on this show tonight. It's the pre-show, that magical time of the show. We do three things. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and we say outrageous things. And I'm trying to see which one I want to do first here. How about a boring personal story?
That'll work.
Once upon a time, Greg Carbon joined our show.
And he promptly hung up.
I noticed that Rick doesn't want to be on the show tonight. Have you guys been fist fighting out there in the hall?
I don't know where Rick is.
I just got a note here. He just says, I'm out tonight. It's this mysterious. He saw you pop up and he ran. So I don't know what's up with that.
I'm not Rick.
No, this is going to be a great show here. Whenever we have active, and we're recording this on December 22nd. The show itself will be released into the wild on Monday the 28th. But we've got active weather at the time we're recording this. We have two really fairly signature events coming up. We have a potential severe weather situation for the eastern part of the country, like within the next 36 hours, and then we have this big snow, post-Christmas snow for Texas, Oklahoma, points north, and we're going to really dive into Mr. Carbon's brain to find out what really is going to happen, because he knows all.
But does he tell all?
He knows right now what the day one convective outlook's going to be for tomorrow. And
yeah, I bet he does.
I know he does. I know he knows exactly what they're going to do.
Should we get pliers and start pulling his fingernails out so he'll tell?
Yes.
He'll just
waterboard him. Yeah, he'll hang right up here.
Yeah, well, WCMs are tough.
So let me hit the old magical tweet button here. You know, I all day I've been on social media, because the way it works now, prior to a big event, it is just all day questions, and I do my best to answer them. And really and truly, I'm honored that they come to me, because they could come to a lot of people and ask questions, and they come to me. I'm honored, and I try to answer them all. But after you do it for about 18 hours, you're kind of, in the zone. So,
great name for show.
Yeah. So I shared little tweet that says, "In other news," did y'all see that one?
Yes.
And it was on our station's website here. So let's pull this up here.
It's amazing what makes news.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. This in other news, it's obviously a slow news day over in the news department. And this is not in the audio podcast, so I'm just going to let it speak for itself. I don't have to read this. But Brian, did you see this story?
I did. I figured it was a slow news day.
Wow. Dawn does not look very happy. I mean, she looks like somebody popped her in the lip or something there. But they arrested her. They should have arrested the guy if he wouldn't stop his problem. I mean, they should have arrested both of them.
Well, now they pretty much have to arrest somebody. So,
yeah, the best part is reading the story. I mean, and I don't even want to go there.
Already gone.
Well, I'm not going to stoop to read this story. I'll put it that I will put it on.
You're dying to stoop to read it.
I have some comments. We've had so many great stories in my market here lately. I mean, we had a fist fight at the city hall. We've had that.
Yeah, but not just any fist fight between the mayor and a councilman.
I missed this. What city was this?
Birmingham.
Oh, down our mayor? You mean?
Yes. Where have you been? That made national news. I mean, So the mayor and a city councilman got into a fight during a city council meeting.
Which city council?
Birmingham.
I know, but which city councilman?
Lundy.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know that one. Okay.
And then they had to kiss and make up.
Yeah, they kissed and made up the next day. Gosh,
That's back to the old Betty Fine Collins Wild West days of the '80s. We used to watch the the cable access television to watch the city council meetings. We have to go back to doing that.
I told our news department they ought to get Mayor Pee Wee of Carbon Hill and Mayor Larry of Talladega to be an expert panel when all this stuff happens. Mayor Pee Wee was arrested for he went down there and had some kind of sexual crime with the female women in the jail, and then Mayor Larry got beat up with a baseball bat by the husband of some lady he was having relations with. You can't make all this stuff up, but we could bring in Mayor Pee Wee and Mayor Larry as the analysts for Mayor William and his fights down there. So
maybe this is the new WWF.
Yeah, it could be. So. All right, enough of that. So we can start on time. They are not going to take this live on television tonight. They'll take it Monday, the 28th, at 8:30. So the show will be live only to YouTube.
It will be on YouTube or live.bigbrains.
Yeah, right. Live.bigbrainsmedia.com.
It scared me to death. I told somebody they had sent me a direct message on Twitter, and I told them yes.
No, I put out a tweet that Greg was coming on the show, and all of a sudden everybody wants to watch, and then nobody wants to watch us, but now we get the world watching here.
You don't want
it's the incomparable Greg Carbon.
You stole my word.
But I'm a good buddy with Greg because we come from the same part of the world.
BT.
BT.
Yeah.
BT phone home.
You know what I'm giving out for presents this year, Greg?
What do you got?
Maple sugar candy.
Oh,
Maple candy.
You know,
I guessed it. Wow. I guessed who Paul Feinbaum was. Yeah.
We had a poster about maple sugaring at the NWA conference.
There you go.
I missed that one. Ouch.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
Dependent on weather. Maple sugar.
Yes.
Yeah. I did a package on it last February. I went up to a sugar maple farm in Virginia because we have a county that's the southernmost maple syrup producer.
Not for long.
Uh-oh.
Greg's going to start producing it in Norman, Oklahoma.
No.
Hey, Sean, can you hear us okay? Give us a mic check.
Yeah, I can hear you guys just fine. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, man.
He obviously looks like he's thinking about doing something else this evening besides spending it with us.
He's got a party to go to.
Yeah, and again, the way the way we always do this every year, we're not going to do any recorded segments, no email. We're just going to let Greg do his thing and have fun, and we'll get out early. And again, I'm the lead, obviously, in the newscast tonight, so we will get out on time tonight. So let's get this booger going since we're all here. We're not waiting on the television side. This will air on TV Monday, and they'll release the audio podcast Monday, but the YouTube, we'll let that go out tonight. All right, so here we go. Let me get the recorders turned on here. My track, Hangout track, and here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Whether it's a tornado or just some rain, WeatherBrains. Whether it's snow or a hurricane, WeatherBrains. Informative and fun, sometimes absurd. It's a show for all you weather nerds. WeatherBrains.
One more time.
Yeah, WeatherBrains.
It is. This is the weekly show all about weather. This is WeatherBrains, episode number 519, The Year Ender. This is for December 28, 2015. We are going to put a big bow on the year 2015 and take a look back at the weather events we've experienced and maybe look ahead to 2016.
Informative and fun, haven't you heard? It's a show for all you weather nerds. WeatherBrains.
Yes, it is.
Oh yeah, WeatherBrains.
So here we are, gathered together around this fine digital mahogany table. This is James Spann. This is always a fun show. I'd say this has got to be one of my favorites of the year, and Thank you for joining us. And obviously, with the holiday schedule, we have a lot of folks that are out tonight. Dr. Scala is out. Kevin is out. Nate is out. Rick Smith is out. But we have some others back with us. Bill Murray, he was absent from the Christmas show. He was watching Oregon Ducks hockey or something. That's kind of strange.
Yeah, Alabama played Oregon last night in the Vulcan Classic here, and it was a lot of fun. It was a good game. So I'm sorry I missed the show. I was really looking forward to hearing from Andrew Oldaker. We're going to reschedule him, but apparently Google or something bit us last night and messed that up.
Yeah, that was last week's show. And again, look, we wear our heart on our sleeve. We're transparent here. We're actually recording the show December 22nd. It's released into the wild on December the 28th. But, Bill, it's good to have you back. Aubrey Urbanowitz was here last night. I thought Aubrey was especially good last night.
Well, thank you. I thought you were wonderful too, James.
And obviously we've both been in the liquor cabinet tonight. So, Aubrey, enjoying the unseasonable warmth in the east, the El Nino blowtorch up into Virginia, huh?
Oh, just loving it, loving it. We hit, what did we hit? 63 today, I think. And we could tie the record tomorrow if we hit 65. Break the record on Christmas Eve. All we have to do is make it to 70, and that should be absolutely no problem. And maybe even breaking another record on Sunday. So, things are normal here for December in Virginia.
Yep. And I've said this, but I don't think there's any such thing as normal weather. I think there's average weather, but normal, nah.
Yeah.
I remember when I first came here in the late 70s, there was some old guy. So I spoke at a Rotary Club. And I was probably 22 years old, and this old guy said, I've been living here all my life, and I can never remember the weather being this strange. And I've had some old people say that to me every year
Everyone
since then.
says that now.
Yeah, they all say that, and now I'm the old guy, but I don't say that because the weather's strange every year. But yeah, it's clearly strange. Brian Peters is the internationally beloved meteorologist, former warning coordination meteorologist for NOAA. The former government employee who has crossed over to the dark side.
And he went away.
Uh-oh, Brian, don't
I
make
did?
me.
Oh, there he is.
Have you got to play it?
Off and on again, off and on again, off and on again.
It seems to be every time I talk, it happens. I should just play that myself. By the way, we might break a record Christmas Day here, too.
Absolutely. We had 76.
74 set in 1987.
Brian, for those that don't know, is in Birmingham, Alabama. And I was looking at the records where we are down here. The record for Christmas Eve is 77, set back in 1964.
Wow.
That was the year that Brian celebrated his 30th anniversary with the Weather Service, I think. No, I
was out of diapers in 1964. That's for sure.
Tell you what, I was alive. I was, oh goodness, I was like 8 years old or something, and I actually do recall some very warm Decembers back in the 60s. It's funny, a lot of people just remember the snow events. I remember the warm events. I thought it was great. You're out there in T-shirts and flip-flops at Christmas time, but that was in 64.
James, while I was looking up those records, I was amazed that on the 26th of December in Birmingham, the record is only 72, and that record has stood since 1911.
Well, let's get rid of that. Let's flush that one.
I think if the warmth will hold, we'll flush that one for sure.
We'll take that out. And let me just say this: we have two pretty big weather events coming up, and we're going to corner our guest here in just a second to get some insight from him, since he is a big shot at the Storm Prediction Center. But let's see. I think, Bill, we've got everybody. The home folks have introduced. So, Bill Murray, introduce our special guests that are here tonight.
Yeah, James, I'll start with the guest panelists. And the first of tonight's guest panelist is an IT specialist with an interest in weather and storm chasing. Ben Holcomb, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Now, Ben, you say that you're always on an adventure, and you've done a lot of storm chasing. So what's the biggest adventure that you've ever been on?
In 2010, we ended up in a storm chase in South Dakota, and we kind of were driving down a road. It kind of ended in a field, so we turned around, and oh no, there was 2 tornadoes coming down the road, so we drove like any reasonable person would do into a farmer's field to escape the tornadoes, and ended up stuck, and about $400 a person later, we were out, Everybody had their lives. Nothing was really damaged, so that was good. But that was a trying few minutes, that's for sure.
Well, if every minute in your life is an adventure and that's the worst one, then well, I hate to ask about the other ones. But it's good to have you on the show tonight. And the reason we've got you and Sean on the show tonight, Ben, is because you guys were instrumental in making our show at the National Weather Association meeting in Norman a big success.
Hey!
We really appreciated that. So
Give them a
thank
round
you
of-
guys for making that happen. The other person who made that happen is our other guest panelist tonight, Sean Riley, who is an IT specialist and meteorology instructor with the OU School of Meteorology. He is working really hard right now to develop the broadcast meteorology program at OU into state-of-the-art technology. So, Sean, it's nice to have you with us tonight, too.
Thanks. It's nice to be on the show.
You were just amazing, Sean, pulling all that together, and you and Ben really moved heaven and earth to make that a fun show, and again, we really appreciate it. So it's good to have you all here tonight. We're going to talk about all the weather events of 2015, and then we want to talk about some of the things you guys are doing, too, when we dump Greg out, because we know that our guest, WeatherBrain, tonight has a big day tomorrow. And, of course, we always reserve this show for him every single year. Greg, you're awfully nice to do this. It's great to have you back again.
And my pleasure. Bill, how's my audio?
It sounds really good. It's
Okay, very good. I want to make sure we got bandwidth tonight. You know, a lot of information coming your way.
Now, are you still at the office, or are you home tonight? What are you up to?
I'm home. I've been home for a few hours. I had to do some shopping to get ready for the holidays. Family's coming in, but work calls too. I got to get back in the office tomorrow morning. I've got a Skype interview at 8 Central, 9 Eastern with the Weather Channel about the upcoming day one and beyond, and then a day or two, or maybe a day and a half off. I'm never off.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
And I'll be working shift actually on Saturday and Sunday, working the Outlook shift. So I'm kind of looking forward to that because the weather is very interesting and it looks like a busy weekend.
So, Greg, I guess this is probably a good time to start talking about the severe weather that's going to go on later tonight and the outlook for tomorrow. And I use the word outlook
again,
generally.
Hey, Bill, I'm sorry. Let me clarify, because this show's going out on the 28th.
Sorry,
so, no, that's okay. Now, this is we are dealing with a show that is being recorded on the 22nd. So for those that are just listening to this fresh podcast, we are kind of taking you back in time before Christmas. So I just wanted to clarify, we are doing the show on the 22nd. So, and I do want to know, Greg, what's the outlook going to say tomorrow?
Well, ideally, we can come back and dub in this part just before.
If we miss it totally, yeah.
Exactly. We can edit right to the last
Manipulate
minute.
the records?
We'll just snip this part out if anything goes wrong.
Exactly what's going to happen. Let's dub it in a few days. Tomorrow looks like we will see an evolution from, isolated potential. I think we're going to see some storms overnight tonight, and there's this low-end potential along the Gulf Coast because that's where the better moisture and instability exist. But the stronger forcing and shear look to arrive across Arkansas late afternoon into the evening hours tomorrow. Some of the storm scale guidance showing the potential for rotating storms, supercells, basically between Little Rock and Memphis during the late afternoon, early evening. That was a forecast probably a few hours ago. So, things are changing, and they always will. They're dynamic. But this has the signal of a relatively robust severe weather outbreak with the potential for strong tornadoes. What's fascinating about this is that we've seen this before. Around this time of year, it does occur. I put up a map today of tornado watches around this time of year, and there's a relatively high probability of tornado watches across parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, right around Christmas time. So the atmosphere is doing what it has done before, and sometimes that's not so nice, even though the season is. So we've got to keep an eye out, especially tomorrow. It looks like this will continue into the nighttime hours tomorrow night. Well, and again, we're going to be broadcasting this out in the future. We'll see how it all turns out. hopefully Christmas Eve day, and the beginning of Christmas won't be all that active. And then another system comes in from the west for the weekend, and we could see another round or two of severe weather beyond the 27th, 28th. So when this program goes live, I would expect that we're going to be dealing with another round of severe weather.
Wow. Well, that's really not good news because we're sitting on a record that we really would like to keep in effect, Greg, and that's this fatality record. Talk about the significance of that, and hopefully we'll keep that intact.
Well, we stand at 10 tornado fatalities for the year to date, the lowest on record, and the records that we have, the official records go back to 1950, but we have fatality records from tornadoes all the way back into the 1800s. We've never seen a year with a lower number, and so that's a good thing. And let's hope it stays that way. This would be a very, very remarkable year in terms of the lack of tornadoes. Now, I think some of that is due to the lack of tornado activity. Obviously, some of it is due to the fact that we've got better technology and we can foresee these things coming. But we've had some very quiet years ever since 2011. We're in the fourth year in a row of well below normal tornado activity across the country, and that no doubt plays a substantial role in keeping the fatality count low. Whether that will turn around is anybody's guess. El Nino tends to suppress tornado activity off to the south, but we know that in El Nino winters, parts of the Gulf Coast and Florida are particularly at risk, especially for nighttime tornadoes, which can be the deadliest tornadoes. You can't see them coming.
Yeah, so, was it 1998, Greg, when the big tornado outbreak hit Florida?
Right.
In the early spring or late winter, maybe?
In February. Yeah. So let's hope that that's not the case this year. And actually, the last strong El Nino, we didn't see much in the way of strong tornadoes in Florida. We saw a number of events that had strong thunderstorms associated with them, but not strong tornadoes. So sometimes you don't know how close you are, and I think I don't need to tell anybody on the panel that that's the case. I mean, we often are unaware of how close we are to potential disaster, and we sometimes get blamed perhaps for crying wolf, but I think the blame would be even worse if we didn't keep an eye out for something during these events with some potential for tornadoes. And an event can go on with strong thunderstorms, no tornadoes, no fatalities, no injuries, no damage, but you never really know how close you are to having a significant event occur.
And there have been some terrible tornadoes in December in Arkansas, by my recollection, Greg.
This corridor from Arkansas across the Tennessee Valley is particularly vulnerable this time of year. One of the first outbreaks I remember in my career as a WCM was the February 5th, 2008 tornado break across parts of Tennessee. That was remarkable. I had 56 fatalities at that event, and I thought at the time that was the most dramatic tornado outbreak that I would experience in my career. But unfortunately, that was not the case.
So Greg, what's the longest that we've ever gone in the United States without a tornado fatality? If May 25th was the last one, I think. Do we know what's the longest streak we've ever had? I don't want to jinx things, but
I have that. I actually have a graphic, but not updated for the current span. And you always wonder about that because you wonder if you're going to jinx it. So,
right, exactly.
We
need to quit talking about it right away. All right, let's move on. So you always kind of like having your dad come and read the Christmas story, Greg, and that's you finishing. Tell us real quick how you got into doing your meteorological memories. Where did it start, and how has it evolved over time?
I was asked to give a year-end presentation to the Omaha chapter, the American Meteorological Society, NWA, in 2003, I believe it was, and I had some friends up there who worked for. Aubrey keeps yawning.
I'm sorry. It's
She's up past her bedtime.
No, it's an insomnia that I'm fighting. It's
no.
yeah, it's I've I've had a sleep study and all that stuff done and stuff, so it's breathing rate and stuff like that. It's not you.
On shift work.
Feel bad.
Whiskey works.
Is that a glass of tea or is that something stronger, Greg?
It's
Show
not-
title. Show title.
Okay, so 2003, I went up to the talk, and I wanted to give a presentation about SGP, but I also wanted to give a talk that was relatable to folks who are lay people, not meteorologists. They didn't want it to be too technical. And so I said, well, why don't I just review the events of the year? And it turned out to be quite successful there. The following year, I used it to go to the NWA meeting in Portland, Oregon, because I'd never been to Portland. I wanted to get out there, so I submitted an abstract, and I got out there, and it was very successful. And Jim Moore pulled me aside and said, you have to do that next year in St. Louis. And Rod Schofield, all these great mentors in meteorology, wonderful men who passed, and enjoyed the idea of consolidating the interesting weather events of the year. And you really can't go wrong. My wife calls it my shtick. You can't go wrong.
It is.
It's talking about weather, big weather events to meteorologists. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? And if you combine that with drinking, like we did at the NWA, drink every time Greg says extreme. I don't, it becomes even more popular. So it's a labor of love. I spend hours coming up with these events and developing a story for each one. I have put this year's talk and prior years, the last couple of years, on YouTube, and we'll send that link out so that everyone can enjoy the talk and not listen to me just ramble about it, but actually hear the details of the top 10 events.
All right, Greg. Well, let's roll through the meteorological memories of 2015, and maybe we can make a couple of comments along the way if you'll give us an opportunity.
Absolutely. All right, here we go. And again, these events are my meteorological memories. Your mileage may vary, and it's perfectly fine if it does. These are not officially sanctioned. I don't run these by some board of government meteorologists for their approval. So I better watch it.
Oh, that's coming. That's coming in the future.
These are just memories that I've had through the year. So we'll start with number 1 in 2015, and that was the remarkable winter in Boston especially. The snow records were just obliterated. I mean, so many records, dozens of snowfall records just completely blown away. And probably the big one was their seasonal snowfall record, which was broken in mid-March. And I love the tweet that the mayor sent out, which was Mayor Marty Walsh, and he's still their mayor, even after a snowy winter, which is a good sign. He knows how to handle snow.
Yeah. There have been some mayors that have bitten the dust over snowstorms.
Other mayors have not fared so well, but his tweet was essentially along the lines of, like, Boston World Series records, Super Bowl records, Stanley Cup records, and now snowfall records. We are truly a tidal city. There will be no I don't think people wanted a parade at that point. They just wanted the snow to melt, but actually the pile of ugly snow melted not until July in the middle of the city.
Wow.
So number 1 has to be New England snow, and I'm from New England, so as Brian knows, growing up in Vermont, I got interested in meteorology living in Vermont and watching the snowfall during the winter. So I always have a nor'easter in my year in review talk. I hope they never end.
So, Greg, if this were not chronological, would this be your biggest or most important or biggest, highest priority one?
I'm not going there.
It's just us and a few people over at Aubrey's house. That's all it is, Greg.
Yeah, it's just me and the bear. Which, by the way, I just got a tweet requesting the bear. So.
Who's the bear?
That's my little dog. You may have seen her face.
Let's see the dog.
She'll come back in here in a minute. I think she's playing with a ball or something.
What's the bear's top weather event?
She did enjoy playing in some February snow. I I had to. She wouldn't go outside, so I had to shovel a path for her to get her to go outside because the snow. We had a couple of snow events in February.
Not a husky then.
No, she's about 14 pounds. She's a Shih Tzu Lhasa Apso.
Well, we'll have to see the bear before the end of the.
Yeah, we'll get her in here.
Okay. So we on to number 2?
Mm-hmm. Let's go.
All right. Number 2 was the lack of severe weather for the first 3 months of the year, January, February, March. Unprecedented lack of severe thunderstorm and tornado watches issued by the SPC. We went a 51 or 52-day stretch in there without any watch issued. So talking about watch-free spans. I think it was the longest span without a severe weather watch anywhere in the country for about 29 years. And March also went to March 23rd with no watches, which was the longest on record. If you run a simulation of watches, normally by the end of March will be around 80. And that's severe thunderstorm and tornado watches for anywhere in the country. So normally by the end of March, we've issued 80 watches. We have 13 at the end of March. A record low, 46 years of records, and just an incredibly quiet severe weather pattern. Now, not surprising than what we saw for the winter weather in the Northeast. I mean, obviously, when you have that pattern in place, you've got dry continental polar air, limiting instability across much of the country, and that, basically leads to the lack of severe storms. But this past year, 2015, March, January, February, and March, incredibly limited number of severe weather watches, and hard to imagine we would see lows like that again. I mean, that's how unusual it was. So that's memory number 2, and I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It most likely will not repeat.
So does this lend well into your third slide, Greg?
Kind of. The third one's interesting because it's not a weather event, and I really struggled with this a little bit, but then I thought, this is an interesting event from a science perspective, a forecasting science perspective. And that was, I think that was number 3, right? Did I have number 3? Yeah, it was the severe weather forecast, right? Dr. John Allen and colleagues up at Columbia University worked a lot on trying to understand seasonality of severe weather and extend the range of severe weather prediction. And I've worked with them closely, in fact, involved with extended range forecasting beyond 1 week to try to anticipate severe weather. And they issued the first research forecast for a small area. You have to understand that their forecast was based on a long-term assessment of connections between the ENSO phase, El Nino Southern Oscillation, and severe weather in the following spring, March, April, May. And so they issued the very first seasonal forecast for severe weather, encompassing the period of March, April, and May, for a small region of the country centered on the Arklatex, basically Texas, part of Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, and Oklahoma. And so in my talk in the year in review, I basically go over their methodology and also a review of verification of their forecast, which is actually, in the end, quite difficult to verify because we saw a really strong gradient in severe weather activity across their area of interest. In other words, we saw well above normal severe weather activity across parts of Texas, but well below normal activity, and this is for March, April, and May, well below normal severe weather across parts of eastern Louisiana, parts of Mississippi. And I think that's what's really challenging about this extended range forecast approach is how do you do this? Because there's so much variability in the level of severe weather across different parts of the country at different times of the year, in different years. How do you quantify an extended range forecast? And so we're still working on that, but I give Dr. Allen and his colleagues credit for developing, pioneering a way forward in this approach to severe weather forecasting. So that was memory number 3, and it's kind of a, it's not your typical weather event, but it's actually a weather forecast.
So do you see a lot of those seasonal forecasts beginning to be developed as we go through time for severe weather, Greg? Is this a new trend, sort of like hurricane forecasting?
Yes, I mean I think that's what we're aiming for is some similar approach to what the hurricanes, the seasonal forecast is for hurricanes. I also see us moving toward the possibility of issuing, 1 month lead forecasts, and what these would be an assessment of severe weather activity well above or well below what we would expect. And so if we don't see a signal for well above or well below normal activity, the forecast is essentially going to be climatology. And so don't look for any, world-changing specific exact forecast. We don't do that now, actually, in a day ahead or 2 days ahead. But what we would like to try to get a hold of is, will April be well above normal for severe storms in those areas of the country that normally expect severe weather? So we're working on this. I think we have some tools. We have good tools that give us insight into, say, the next 7 to 14 days. The real challenge is day 15 to day 30. And that's where, we continue to experiment with what we've got, but we don't have a lot to hang our hats on there. But you don't know if you don't try. And so I think we're going to try and move forward on that.
And Greg, I have to pave a parking lot in Jacksonville in January, and I need 4 days above 60 degrees with no rain and 50% sunshine. Could you work on that?
You got it.
If it's a little slow at the SPC this weekend, I know you can do it.
Put that order in right now, Bill.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, I appreciate that.
Okay, on to number 4. The only significant, violent tornado, strong tornado of the year, the only EF4 tornado rated in 2015 was the Fairdale, Illinois tornado on April 9th this year. And that was kind of a typical severe weather event across northern Illinois. There were a number of very graphic videos of this event, long track tornado across northern Illinois, well forecast, well warned for fatalities with that in the small town of Fairdale. And so that gets in as memory number 4. And thank goodness that was the only, really significant damaging killer tornado of the year. There were other killer tornadoes, but that was the big one. And not far away from Chicago, and in fact, that area of Illinois has a recent infrequency of strong tornadoes because they had the November event, November 17th, the year before, further south. But that was a little bit farther north and close to Chicago, but in a relatively rural area, Fairdale, a relatively small town. So that was memory number 4.
And Greg, how many people perished in that tornado?
I believe it was 2, which is remarkable considering the damage, the pictures of damage that came out of that town. I believe there were 2 fatalities and several injuries with that.
And Greg, I was looking at the tabulation of the fatalities this year, and there've been 10, and all of those have been in a watch. 9 in a tornado watch, and the 10th fatality was in a severe thunderstorm watch. So, how does that compare to previous years? I know this is a small sample size with only 10 fatalities, but how does that sort of compare to past years?
I ran those numbers a few years ago, Bill. I think killer tornadoes in recent years are probably, there's better than 90% probability that you'll be in a watch. I think it's up 90 to 95% probability there's a watch out for those events.
Okay, well that's awesome. All right, well, I guess move on to number 5 then, Greg.
Okay, what was 5? Oh,
the wettest month on record. Yeah.
Backyard.
Yeah.
I put a stone patio, worked my tail off putting this patio in a couple of years ago, big flagstones. I'd seen this picture on the web of a beautiful patio that had moss growing in between the stones, and I thought, oh, it was in Washington State or something. I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to live in a place where moss grows and become
Careful what you ask for.
Beautiful moss on my patio in Oklahoma. It's awesome, right? I look out the door. There's this moss growing in my patio that I never expected to see in Oklahoma, but it takes about 50 inches of rain a year.
And it was there in June, and then it died in July, and then it came back in
We've kept up.
September.
And, when I did my talk at the NWA, I highlighted number 5 as the month of May, smashing all previous records for accumulated precipitation in Oklahoma City. It was even greater here in Norman. I had 45 inches of rain by the end of May. At my house. 45 inches of rain.
Wow.
That's a year.
That's crazy.
And I mean, there were just amazing downpours here in the month of May. And the record, and then we went into a very quiet period in August, and this isn't part of number 5, but I'll just bring you up to date. We are now within shot of the second wettest year on record for Oklahoma City, and it's possible. I doubt we're going to make it to number 1, but it's possible. So the rain was incredible, and it wasn't just Oklahoma; it was Texas. Major floods. I was reading the other day that the what's the name of the river? I can't think of the river that flows through San Antonio. The big
Brazos? Brazos River?
The Brazos rose 31 feet in 2 hours.
Wow.
During one of the events. The Red River on the Oklahoma-Texas border almost topped I-35. And if you've ever driven that bridge, you're like, how in the world did that happen? So just an incredibly active, rainy period of time from late April into May across the Southern Plains. Just all-time records busted, swamped. And not only that, we got, heavy rain does not come unaccompanied here in May, and there's going to be hail, and there are going to be tornadoes. And Norman got whacked a couple times, especially the western side of town. But I got golf ball to tennis ball size hail at the house here, and I got a new roof out of it. It wasn't, it was a few big hailstones, and the roof was just pretty much demolished. So we ended up with a new roof out of that. So number 5. Incredibly memorable, heavy rain across the Southern Plains, and we're going to be pushing record amounts for the year. Actually, Dallas-Fort Worth has already busted their annual record, and it's just what a time to be alive.
Yeah, now, Greg, and that doesn't even include all the rainfall from Tropical Storm Bill in June, right?
Right. Well, no. I mean, it just went on from there, and. Like I said, I mean, we're pushing second place now. We'll probably end up in second or third, I think, year for the year, and that's 125 years of record.
Wow.
And I was in Ardmore when Tropical Storm Bill came passing by, and we had National Weather Association Council meeting that weekend. I could not get out of Ardmore, Oklahoma, to the north, west, or south, Greg.
Right.
Luckily it cleared up, and we had to go through the Arbuckles, on a little tiny 2-lane road to get to Norman because there was a rock slide across I-35 there.
Right.
It was pretty amazing. I think 22 inches of rain at a little town there in about, 36 hours just northwest of Ardmore.
Yeah.
So pretty crazy. So on to drought, from rainfall to drought.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd have to do this again, but second year in a row, basically number 6 features California, which, it's actually been 3 summers with well above normal temperatures during the summer months and very little precipitation. And so as anomalous as the rainfall was in the Southern Plains, the heat and drought were anomalous across California and spread north across Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. And of course, that means fire as you move into the summer months, and there were a couple of pretty significant lightning events that brought about wildfire activity. And Washington State had one of their worst summers for fires on record. A large number of very big fires, what they call mega fires, in excess of 10,000 acres. So they lost more acreage to fire in the state of Washington this past summer than any of the other recent years on record. And things are turning around now, hopefully, with more rain and snow up in that part of the country. But California's got a long way to go. And a couple of the statistics from California include, they're going to need 300% of normal rainfall across Southern California to get even close to the median amount that they would require in a 5-year period, I think it is. That would mean, I think, 51 inches of rain for places like LA, which would be higher than any rainfall ever on record for a water year. So in order to recover from this drought, you're going to need something that's never happened before, or else it's going to take a lot longer to recover from. So they're in dire straits out there, and has not been a good situation. And the longer-term, large-scale pattern has been very persistent, with the ridge in the west and the northwest flow across the central U.S. kind of contributing to the lack of severe weather and tornado activity. So we'll take that. And then cooler than normal until recently conditions across the Great Lakes and Northeast. And maybe we're starting to see a change in that pattern, somewhat for the better in the western U.S., but it brings other problems in other parts of the country when it does change. So number 6 and number 7 memories were heat, drought, and fire in the west.
So Greg, when I look at the drought monitor, always California is 99.86% drought. And I wonder what that 0.14 is. I don't know where that area is, the two little white areas. Must be some rainforest north of San Francisco right there.
Or there's a very deep well. Or desalinization plant. I don't know what that is there. But it is nice to see that the snow is returning to the Sierra.
Absolutely.
The Sierra Nevada had very little snowpack the last couple of years. And, the economy, not just for water and water storage in the Sierra Nevada, but the ski areas depend on that snowpack to make it go. And it's been really, really tough the last couple of years. The atmosphere has a way of changing regimes, and one area may start to benefit while another one doesn't. And we see the Northeast this year struggling for snow. So, there's always somebody who's not happy somewhere.
It seems to me that every time I've looked at the watch warning map over the past 10 to 15 days, there has been a winter storm warning in the Sierras.
Yeah. And, when we're in this pattern of the jet and the tropical moisture from the Pacific feeding into this jet stream in the Northeast Pacific, it's like a fire hose, really, and it slams into the higher elevations, the Sierra and the Cascades, and it really is pretty remarkable because you get to a certain elevation there, and no matter how warm and moist that air is, at some level it's snow, and it's a heck of a lot of snow. It'd be really neat to experience that sometime, and just it just piles up, and they're seeing that now, and it probably won't be very long before we hear problems with avalanches, because that's the type of heavy wet snow that leads to avalanche problems as we warm up after these events, in between events, or as we go towards spring. So, but we're not forecasting, we're reviewing.
Exactly. So talk about these flash floods in Utah. That's your number 8, Greg.
So kind of paradoxical that the west is all dry and hot and burning, but we have this event that occurs in southern Utah, right on the border with Arizona, for number 8. And that's the flash flooding that occurs in Hilldale, Utah, and Zion National Park, which in one day claimed more lives than what we've seen in tornado fatalities all year. In fact, twice the number of fatalities in one day.
Wow!
From really 2 dramatic flash flood events there in southern Utah, and it doesn't take much in that part of the country. But what it does take is some antecedent conditions where the soil moisture is very high, and they had a very wet August, and then you had these events occur, very subtle short waves in the atmosphere, triggering afternoon thunderstorms over terrain that basically canyons that funnel into areas where people are, and they are unexpectedly faced with a dramatic rise in water. And so the Hilldale flooding and the Zion National Park flooding come in as memory number 8 for 2015.
And then an amazing event, some say it's a 1,000-year flood, happened in South Carolina. Greg, that becomes one of the most important events of the year.
Yes, and it seems like as I was going through the year, it's like, wow, it's hard to stay away from these flood events because they're so dramatic. But Joaquin and the floods in South Carolina were just absolutely astounding. From a meteorological perspective, what you had was an atmospheric condition not that different from what we saw with Sandy a few years ago. You had mid-latitude wind field trying to capture a tropical system with a deep trough, an anomalously deep upper-level low-pressure system forming over Georgia, northern Florida, and then the tropical cyclone Joaquin sitting off in the Bahamas. An incredibly complex dynamic in the atmosphere, and fluid dynamics can get that way. And I think it also played into why the forecasts were so dramatically different. If you looked at the ensemble forecast for this event, they really were all over the map, at least in the extended range. And then it became obvious that the upper level trough was probably going to dominate, but that the moisture associated with the tropical system would be entrained to some extent to the slow-moving upper trough, and that South Carolina was going to be in the bullseye for the incredible rainfall. And if you look at a long radar loop of this event, what you see is, again, we were just talking about fire hoses into the Sierra Nevada. This was a fire hose into South Carolina, and yeah, there was movement to that fire hose, but there was a pivot point, and that pivot point was really right over Columbia, Florence, and that's where they basically got hammered with heavy rain for hours on end, and ended up with 26 inches, 27 inches of rainfall over just a couple days, and that's going to cause a problem just about anywhere, and it certainly did for South Carolina. So widespread damage from flooding in South Carolina, roads damaged, bridges out that had been there for years, significant loss of life. I think it was 20 people, or the last I checked, which is similar to the Utah flood. Quite remarkable. We didn't see a higher death toll there. And the tropical system really never was much of an impact. It was just it primed the pump so that the atmosphere was incredibly moist, and all that moisture got wrung out over the Palmetto State.
Yeah, I was watching the Weather Group yesterday. Dr. Shepard, he did a review, and one of the things that was amazing to me was watching the water rescues for people who just stupidly drove into water that was just amazingly high.
Yeah, that's a fun thing to do until it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, it just beyond me. One guy ended up in a tree, and videoed the whole thing.
When are people going to learn that cars are not boats?
Exactly. All right, and you always save the last spot for the end of the year, Craig, and Mother Nature never disappoints you.
Oh no, never. In fact, sometimes there's more than one, and worry about that.
A baker's dozen of weather events.
Again, this airs on the 28th, so who knows? I mean,
let's hope not.
Number 10 may pale in comparison. I hope it does not. I struggled on this one a little bit, but not for too long. 10 was the anomalous severe weather tornado outbreak in the high plains on November 16th. Now you may think, well, November, you can expect severe storms and tornadoes in November, and you can, but not over the Texas Panhandle and parts of western Kansas. That's usually an area that tornadoes will roam in June perhaps or May, but you get into mid to late November, that is highly unusual. It was interesting leading up to this event. I was working shift over the weekend prior to the 16th of November. We were looking at the large-scale pattern and realizing that this had a lot of potential for significant severe weather, even into central Oklahoma. And one of the more deadly, significant tornadoes in Oklahoma happened in 1930 in Bethany on November 19th. Killed 23 school children. EF4 or F4 rated tornado in Bethany at 9:30 in the morning on November 19th, 1930. The pattern resembled that event in some ways, but the timing was different for this event. And so the atmosphere, the forcing and the instability was manifested in tornadoes across the high plains. Very long track, a 50-mile track in western Kansas, unprecedented for this time of year. And so memory number 10 is the tornado outbreak across the high plains on November 19th, 2015.
Wow, just an amazing series of events, as we always see. So, Brian Peters, you have anything you want to add to Greg's list this year? Brian's muted.
Oh.
Have you tried turning?
No, I didn't try turning it on and off again. I did unmute, though. I think it's interesting to note that half of your events...
Brian, actually,
Have you tried turning?
you got your noise back.
Have you tried
Okay.
turning it off and on again?
All right, how's that?
Much better. Go.
Brian's going to hit you tomorrow.
I'm thinking about it.
He'll have to do it from the Storm Chaser van.
Just interesting to note that 5 of your 10 events are related. I know drought is not related to water. It's the absence of water, but it's that there's 5 of the 10 are related to water. I think that's kind of interesting.
Too much or too little?
Yeah, too much or too little, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the atmosphere has a way of moving water around.
Yeah.
And then, you know, as I was going, at first I started 2015, and I thought to myself, well, this isn't all that remarkable a year. But as I put it together, I'm thinking, this is actually one of the more remarkable years in the past dozen or so years that I've done this. Some of these events are absolutely unprecedented in their magnitude. And I know there was comments at the beginning of the show that everything is new and unprecedented. And perhaps that's the case, but it did seem to me that this year had a large number of highly anomalous events. Let's just put it that way. But that's what keeps me in business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, Greg, you had a final slide there that we didn't talk about. Is that like an all-star list over the years, or what?
That's all the places I've given the year in review talk. For the
Oh, there we go. Okay. So, Greg, are there any plans to compile all this into a book or something fun like that?
I've mentioned that to Steve Harned of the NWA. I think at some point in time we could do that, and I would like to, you know, if something comes of that, the proceeds could go to the National Weather Association, because the National Weather Association has always been a big supporter of this talk. And like I said, it's my shtick, but we can share that, and I think that at some point, you know, we can go back and go through these. One of the biggest challenges, I think, I love the collection of graphical information, some of which I create on my own, but some of it is out there in the public. Some of it's not public domain. Some of it's out there in the press. And the copyright issues involved with that we'd have to overcome if we were to publish in the form of a book. But hopefully we can visit that at some point in time. And so, you know, we're up around a dozen years of doing this, and it is a lot of work. I will say that. And every year I start around August. I don't really collect things until then, because how do you put things in any kind of relative framework until you have a number of events in a year? But we'll keep plugging away. And if you've got suggestions, I always encourage folks to send me what you've got. What are your meteorological memories of the year? I'd like to hear them, and you know, maybe they'll make it into the talk.
Well, and as we already alluded to, you added a happy hour and put a drinking game with it at the National Weather Association. This thing could really take off, Greg.
Perfect.
So.
I love it.
Hey, yay.
So, Greg, we always enjoy sort of getting a little...
Go ahead.
We love getting a little State of the Union, what's going on with the SPC from you. what's working, what's what the new categories, new products that are coming, that sort of stuff. Spend a minute and give us a little update.
Sure. It really is mind-boggling and head-spinning when you think about how far we've come in just a short amount of time. The amount of information available to forecasters, it's hard to fathom, how much information is out there. SPC is experimenting with shorter time period tornado outlooks. Usually, these would be something in the day one period where you're trying to refine the actual event prior to its occurrence, in a probabilistic sense, and that's going to feed into the future of warnings. We go to a warning prior. Can you imagine a day in which there's actually a warning before anything is on radar? Yeah. So, SPC is going to play a fundamental role in developing the type of forecasts and the type of outlooks and technology required to do that kind of warning. You could say right now we already do it in the outlook phase, but we're doing it on a very large scale in a broad brush fashion over many hours. But think about how we move forward with that. We're going to have to refine it, and we're going to have to say things about specific hours of the day and specific areas that are at risk. That's a huge challenge, but we're moving toward that all the time. And so we're moving toward that with a better understanding of severe weather events and better science in simulating these events. And that's an ongoing effort, one that's exciting to be involved in.
Yeah, you got that tonight, I guess, in northeastern Texas and southeastern Oklahoma, right, Greg, where you've got a narrowing area where you could have severe weather through the evening hours as you get rapid destabilization, but loss of instability to the north, that sort of stuff, right?
Right, and so you can imagine, how do we refine the forecasts in a very small area and space and time prior to the storms actually existing in that area, and really refine the risk. I guess you could say it's similar to what we did with what the Weather Service has done with storm-based warnings. So we used to issue warnings for a whole county. We don't do that anymore. We issue them for a very small area of the county where the risk is greatest. And so I think it's the same issue that we're facing on a larger scale. How do we refine those forecasts in space and time, but maintain accuracy and some level of confidence in the existence of or occurrence of severe weather? That's just a really incredible challenge, but it's an exciting one too, and it's one that I think is being worked on from a lot of different angles here in Norman, both SPC and the Severe Storms Lab, and Rick in the office and the Norman office. Everyone is coming at this challenge from a different direction. Ultimately, we're going to see better forecasts and better warnings.
So what has the response been to the additional categories that have been in the outlooks for a while now, Greg?
Overall, I think positive. Now we've gone to these 5 categories, which essentially are still not enough categories to describe the underlying probabilities. I'm a big fan of probabilistic forecasting, but I know some folks have challenges with that. But some folks also have challenges with the words. And what we've learned by going to 5 categories is it's not just about the 5 categories. It's about the colors, it's about the numbers, it's about the education, and the understanding of risk. And I have to thank James for a wonderful NWA talk about that and about how we've tried to communicate what these things mean. But we will continue to face a challenge in conveying risk. And you can imagine, I don't think that challenge is going to get any easier, especially as we go down to finer scale in both time and space. And when you bring categories to warnings, what are people going to say then? It's an ongoing endeavor to educate the public about uncertainty and about risk, about their risk to severe weather, so that they can make the right decisions when faced with the information that they've got. And sometimes that information will never be enough, and we have to live with that.
Hey, let me say one more thing, and I know, Greg, you've got to go, and we're going to bring in Sean and Ben from Oklahoma. But and I'm not blowing sunshine up your skirt here because you're on the show. Your page on that SPC site, that's got to be one of the greatest weather pages in the world, the WCM page. So my question is, what kind of staff do you have putting this stuff on that page? I mean, how many people work on that?
I'm really lucky that I work with a lot of smart people. And you know what it's like when you're surrounded by people that are engaged and passionate about what they do. And I'm not just talking about the people at SPC. I'm talking about the students at the University of Oklahoma. I'm talking about people like you that we meet and we talk to on a regular basis. They're constantly pushing us to draw in better terms, in ways that are accessible to a wide range of people, including other scientists. I've approached the job of the WCM as a scientist, but also I want to interact with other people in meteorology and other sectors. The private sector and the broadcast meteorology sector are crucial to us accomplishing our mission. And so everything that goes onto that page is a passion. It's about the passion of understanding weather and understanding severe weather, and it's not just my doing. It's to the credit of everyone who's interested in it. And mostly my staff is me, and my wife is very forgiving. The weekends I spend at home with the laptop, sitting there in the corner working on particular problems, and she's still married to me. That's a big part of it.
Awesome. Well, Greg, thanks a lot for taking the time to come on every year. It's marvelous. I love hearing you in person, hearing you on the show. And again, if we have to edit things in, we can do that. You know, I mean, it's a nice thing about this because you understand this is really fascinating. Here we are on December 22nd recording this, and we have potential for a pretty significant severe weather event on the 23rd. It looks like another severe weather event, and a huge snowstorm, a post-Christmas snow from West Texas up to Iowa. So who knows? So if we had to edit something in, we'll edit something in. But Greg, thank you so much for what you do. Thanks for your service to the weather community, and I hope you have a great Christmas.
All right, you too, James, and thank you for having me on, Bill. Thanks for everything, and appreciate being here, and we'll do it again next year. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Greg.
Thanks,
Greg. Thanks a lot, Greg. All right. Bill, let's bring in our two pals that worked so hard for us in Oklahoma. These guys were so good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we just couldn't have asked for a better situation. So talk about that for a minute, Sean. Talk about what went into doing that. That was no small task.
Ben, jump in too, but I mean it was it wasn't a small task, but it was a lot of fun. Outside of the Tourcast talks that we did with the student chapter of AMS in February, that was one of the first big major things that we've live streamed, and that was the first we've done with the new setup in the Weather Center. So it went off as good as we possibly could have hoped.
Yeah, we put together a program there with Rich Thompson of the SPC. Back in the spring, broadcast 9 different events to YouTube, basically, and if people aren't familiar with them, they can just search for Tourcast on YouTube. There's some great information there that Rich gave out, but we basically I started with just my storm chasing gear and some of the gear we had there in the Weather Center. Quickly realized after a couple of episodes that it wasn't doing what we needed to do. Luckily, school meteorology has a pretty decent budget. Don't let anybody at the state hear that, but you know, we have a pretty decent budget for technology, and so we were able to get a good camera and a good system going for streaming live events. And you know, it's something that I've kind of done a number of times before. So we were able to get everything together and make it work, and you know, bring the Tourcast in the spring, and so, you know, it wasn't a super huge task to bring WeatherBrains live from the Weather Center, but you know, with new mics and all that stuff, we had a little bit of testing to do. So I'm glad it went off as well as it did.
So Ben, your experience has some interesting anecdotal stuff in it relating to storm chasing and streaming to video, right? I mean, you were sort of at the forefront of that several years ago when that got started.
Yeah. So when Severe Studios back in 2008 started streaming live video. And when the chasers started doing it, my cat's apparently wanting to say hi now that I'm talking.
Let's say hello to Bear.
Yeah,
But,
apparently Bear's working on a bone or something.
But back in 2008, I was basically the tech guy for Severe Studios, and it was me and Corey Hartman and Kenny Allen, and we all put that together. They had done. They were more the marketing and the website type guys, and I did the actual technical work, and started at the beginning of 2008. In fact, I chased on February 5th, 2008, the Super Tuesday outbreak, and streamed video, and then we decided, hey, would that be cool if we could stream video and have a whole bunch of different storm chasers do that. So I went ahead and kind of built the system throughout 2008 between work and chasing, and a lot of what Severe Studios is today is code that I wrote way back when. Things didn't go as planned with them, so I kind of moved on. I worked with Chaser TV then after that. We helped get that service up and running, and then I worked for Weather Decision Technologies when I moved here to Norman. From 2010 through 2013, and they owned Chaser TV at that point as well. And J.R. Henley and myself did a lot of the work over on Chaser TV and the WDT map back then. So, quite a bit of video streaming, and I've streamed quite a few chases myself.
So you said that you've seen over 100 tornadoes, right, Ben?
Yes, I've been chasing since 2007, and yeah, I've seen probably 100, 130, somewhere in there, tornadoes. Depends on what you call a tornado, I guess. There's some that have been maybe, I don't know, and others that, yeah, that's a nice tornado. But I'd say at least 100 where I can say, yeah, that's a tornado.
Wow. And so Sean, you probably haven't had as many chases, but you were chasing on the super outbreak in the southeast in 2011, weren't you?
Actually, I didn't really have to chase much. I was working in Huntsville.
Huh?
Yeah, I was in Huntsville at the time. So.
Wow. Yeah. So you were working for Barron then, is that right?
Yeah, I was, and it was kind of cool getting to see some of the. We actually, well, it's probably not safe to say this, but we saw some of the storms from the roof of the Barron office, and that was a weird day because it coincidentally just happened to also be my mother's birthday, so it made it to where she couldn't. It was just an interesting day all around. Having no power for 7 days blew, but
yeah, that's crazy.
I tried to chase that day, but I wasn't able to get off at WDT. So I was watching James actually on the TV as he was showing live video of the Coleman tornado, wishing that I was in Alabama. So still gives me chills to this day just to even think about that moment right then, Ben, that you're talking about. Yeah, it was pretty intense.
So Sean, you grew up in Joplin, and I guess having the tornado there in 2011 also, you've seen a lot of changes in that area since then, haven't you?
Yeah, the tornado really hurt Joplin, and actually, I mean, it made 2011 kind of a rough weather year for me, living through the super outbreak and then seeing that. But you wouldn't even really notice it in Joplin at this point. They've completely rejuvenated that city, and they've taken it as an opportunity to really improve a lot of stuff around the city, and they've pulled in businesses that they've been wanting in the city for many years. It's really cool. And some of my friends were broadcast Mets at the time on TV, and hearing some of their stories and how was an interesting event, but it also really proved James's point about communication and really made it a big deal for me as well, communicating risk because of all the confusion with the Joplin tornado.
Yeah, some pretty crazy stuff. Now, when you were at Mizzou, you did some cool stuff in their weather lab, and I guess that's translated over into what you're doing at OU, right?
Yeah. I luckily not have my degree from the University of Missouri and got a chance to rebuild one of their weather labs there, and then you guys saw it when you were down there for NWA. In March, we just opened the new Oklahoma Weather Lab there in the Weather Center. That is a work of love, and it's also state of the art. We're really proud of that, and also really happy with our partnership with Barron, actually, for our new broadcast lab, where before we had that lab, the students that were interested in broadcast were having to make their graphics on Photoshop.
Mm. Yeah, so that gives them some good real-world experience there.
Oh, yeah, and they all have really enjoyed it. It's let me start teaching a class in the software, and James was nice enough to come talk to my class during NWA, and they all said that was one of the highlights of the class this semester, so thanks again, James.
Hey, that was awesome. I was a bag of hot air, but everybody was so kind. That was a lot of fun.
It actually hit home. There were a few of them I could notice changes in how they were doing their how they were talking in their assignments and stuff after you came and visited. So.
Oh, look at you, Span. You're encouraging.
No, that was fun, and I'm not that good with that age group. You know, I'm better teaching science to third graders, but it's all, I do enjoy getting to see older people and having some adult experiences. So that was great fun, and again, that was just a great trip. And I want to thank you guys for helping us so much with that live show. That thing has been seen over and over and over, and I've watched it several times. And it's just that was such an interesting show because we had all those different people that were interesting. And then you had it was the classic split. You had Bill and the NPR guys on one end, and they had me and Chuck Doswell and the Zoo Crew guys on the other end. I mean, I don't say I figured you guys' head were going to explode before that thing was over.
No, it was fun to see, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh wow, you're just running around like a chicken with your head cut off, trying to make sure everything was working." But it was a blast, and hopefully we get a chance to do it again at the Weather Center. It was have you guys out there and do another WeatherBrains sometime eventually.
Yeah, we need to. Hey, Ben, what kind of slick mic you got there? What is that thing? It's got a blue light that lights up.
Oh, yeah, I had to flip that around so that it wasn't distracting to the camera. It's just a USB mic. I got sick of the one that's on the webcam, so. That's
awesome. No, I love that was cool. The little blue light was pulsating there. All right. Well, I tell you what, I've got to break away in just a second to go, but again, sincerely thanks to both of you guys, and I hope we get to do that again soon. That's an amazing place. It's the mecca of the weather universe, the National Weather Center, and we really enjoyed the show. And maybe Brian, you could put a link to that show on the show notes for this week, so people can go back and watch that, because I think that was the first time we've had everybody there. We left one behind, Aubrey. Because it is illegal to have all the WeatherBrains crew in one place. You know, we always have to leave one behind in case of some type of catastrophic event. And I was going to ask about, just some thoughts on next year, and I guess maybe we got 2 minutes to do that. We can go around the horn. So with Greg's episode, we always look back, which is fun. But at the same time, I look forward, and that we're knocking on the door of 2016. I've said this before. My concern is for an active spring season across Dixie Alley where we are, and the hurricane season might come back. Anybody got any thoughts on 2016?
Well, we obviously have a lot more moisture here in the southern plains, so that's kind of been a limiting factor in severe weather really in the last 3 years or so. And as Greg was saying, we've had record amounts of low record amount tornado. I imagine going forward here with adequate moisture, we'll probably see more severe weather than we have here in the past few years.
Yeah, I think in the hurricane zone, I think El Nino coming to an end about the beginning of hurricane season is a scary thought.
Mm-hmm.
We've been a long time without a major hurricane in the U.S. and that streak's got to come to an end at some point.
Yeah, Brian, what do you think? What are your thoughts? Say it.
I'm just worried about tomorrow.
Yeah, let's just get to Christmas, right, Brian?
Yeah, right. I'm worried about a number of things because people's mind is just not on weather, and it's on so much other things, and I'm just worried that that's going to distract people a lot.
Uh-oh.
Brian went away.
Turning it off and on again.
Well, what is up with your mic, Brian? It just kind of like goes away when you're talking.
I have no idea. No idea. Maybe I'll talk
to a blinky light.
Yeah. We have Sean and Ben. We have the two tech guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, come on over to Helena, Alabama, and fix this one.
You need a blinky light.
Show title. Yeah.
Nice.
All right, guys. Well, listen, we do have to wrap this thing up, but thanks a lot to Bill. And nobody ever thanks Bill for getting all these great guests on the show. So, Bill, I'm thanking you. So, thank you.
It is my pleasure.
You do a great job, and I love getting the chance to sit around this thing on Monday nights, or in this case, Tuesday night, and doing the show. But it's been another great year. We look forward to 2016. We typically are on Monday nights at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. You can watch it live.bigbrainsmedia.com. And, of course, most people just listen to the audio version, the podcast version, which is cool. If you want to, drop us a line. The email address here, it's email@weatherbrains.com. Typically, Aubrey does the email segment every week. We'll get back on that next week. Our social media accounts are on the website as well, the show notes and everything else. So let us hear from you. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a great week, and Happy New Year.
And the next time we do this, it will be the 10th anniversary.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's crazy.
Hey, but Ben and Sean, thank you guys again. Y'all were great. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Thank
Oh,
you.
no problem. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks
guys.
for moving your schedule around to meet us tonight. I
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks.
it.
We're off next week, so thank you all. Y'all have a great night. Well, Merry Christmas, and we'll see you here in a couple of weeks.
All right, sounds good.
Bye-bye.